you're watching this video with your children, you may want to wait and watch this not around them. I don't know if this is something you want them to hear or not.
I once was lost, oh, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Welcome everybody to Built on Faith Homestead, or Leaving Egypt, depending on which platform you're watching this on. We are Leaving Egypt on Rumble, and we'll try to put that in our description box down below if I remember to do it. Well, anyhow, today we're going to do a tiny house talk. We traditionally have tried to do these on Tuesdays, but life's been crazy, and so we thought we'd do one today, being as it's finally hit the temperature of, I think, 2 degrees according to my phone.
It's getting toasted.
I'm telling you, it's not the heat, it's the humidity that'll get you, right? But in today's tiny house talk, we want to talk about spiritual warfare and those kinds of things. We'd said before we would do a video on it. This is going to be less of a Bible study style video and more of an experience that my wife and I have had, right? We've had a few experiences, but one in particular really stands out in our mind. And it's something that we want to talk about, not to make you think that we're anything, because we're not. We're just brothers and sisters in the Lord like anybody else, right? That's saved and born again. Let me make sure I got that clear. But I do think that the church fails in talking about this stuff. And then when things happen to somebody, and too often I think people in the church, when I say the church, I mean saved, born again people, right? I think too often the church just sloughs it off like, you're crazy, or that didn't really happen to you. However, they have this very real experience that happened to them, and they have nobody to explain it, right? And so that is why we're doing this video, is to bring awareness to those things and share an event. But we're going to be open and honest with you guys. We're not looking for any praise or anything like that. We're just being open and honest with you guys so that you understand what we've been through, and kind of go from there. So anyway, we'll get right to it. As some of you know from previous videos that we have, we'll try to put this video in the playlist, and one of the videos will be a tiny house talk that we did, talking about my wife's PCOS, right? She got some hormone issues, and she has PCOS, which is whatever it is.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yes, that's it, right? My dropped out college education kicking in, right? And for her, that means, for her personally, she's had a lot of hormone trouble, and that hormone trouble has led to a lot of depression and anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not going to go through all of the weeds that is the depression and anxiety and all of that, but we are going to flash forward to the point that we want to talk about, right? So we had been back and forth to doctors, and they were just slinging all kinds of different medications at my wife, right? All kinds of different things that they thought were helping. And just to be honest, this isn't a knock on any doctors or anything, but just to be honest, they were making her worse.
Yeah, it would be okay. Some of them made me okay for like maybe 4 days. Like, I felt like awesome. I was like, oh man, this is great.
And then
then it would go completely the other direction.
Yeah, worse than when you started. So anyhow, this event happened to us about 5-ish years ago. It wasn't too long after Luella was born. Melissa didn't really experience, your classic postpartum or anything like that a lot of women do. And by the way, if you're experiencing that, please seek some help from your family, from your friends, and most of all from the Lord, right?
Yeah.
But it was seriously, it was her hormones that were so out of whack from having PCOS. And so one day in particular, there at our old house, things got really, really bad, really, really hard. And I had taken Luella, our oldest, I had taken her over to my mom's house, and I came back over with my wife to be with her and to help her through. She would have panic attacks that were so bad that it looked like she's having seizures. Yeah. I know, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about. And so she was having one of those panic attacks, and she was laying in bed, and I'm just no dumb hillbilly, and I say that a lot on these videos because it's the truth, right? I am. I'm just a old down the hillbilly, and I do the best I can to serve the Lord, but I fail a lot and a lot more than I should probably. But I didn't know what to do, and so she was laying in bed, and I put my arm around her, and I was praying. She didn't know what I was doing. I was just laying there quiet with my head kind of in the pillow, and I felt like the Lord said, you need to command these things out of here. And just to be honest with you guys, I felt like the Lord had told me that a few days before that, and I just wouldn't do it because it didn't. I was like, no, Lord, you command them out. Like, I'll ask you to send them out, but I'm not commanding anything out, right? And this day in particular, this night, as I was praying, I just felt that really, really strong. It wouldn't go away. So finally, I said, okay, Lord, if this is you, we will try to do what we can here, right? And so quietly into myself, I wasn't out loud or anything like that, I started commanding these things out. Which, by the way, if you're watching this video with your children, you may want to wait and watch this not around them. I don't know if this is something you want them to hear or not. Probably should have said that at the beginning of the video. I'll probably add this to the beginning of the video.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got my arm around her, begin to command, like I felt like God was telling me to do. And truthfully, after studying the scriptures is what God tells the disciples and his children to do, right? And so I was commanding these things out, not by my own power or authority, but that given to me by God. And so while I'm doing this, and I got my arm around my wife, on our roof, we hear what sounds like somebody literally sprinting across the top of our house. Just boom, 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 all the way up and down the house. And Melissa looked at me and said, what is that? And I said, I am commanding these evil spirits away from us. And Melissa said something to the effect of, you better command them to get further away or something like that, right? Because it was pretty crazy, right?
And I remember that, but a lot of my brain back to that time in my life is really fuzzy because I had so much trouble. And a lot of you, we may get some hate comments and stuff on here, but we know what happened, and we're just trying to put that out there for other people who may experience maybe not the same thing, but whatever, similar situations or something. Absolutely. And even people have dreams and stuff, right? So I'd had dreams most of my life that I know now were spiritual dreams. I didn't know then what was going on, but I know now. Yeah. And sometimes in the church, if these things go on in your life, you feel alone because nobody really talks about it. It doesn't always mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't always mean that you're, some people are like, oh, well, you're a witch or something. And it's like, no, that doesn't, I'm not a witch.
Right? There's a good spirit and an evil spirit, right? And we know that biblically speaking. So anyhow, we hear this thing, right? Boom, 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 boom. And I tell Melissa what's going on, and we decide right then and there we're going to do what we call a spiritual house cleaning. We're going to go through our house and get rid of anything, any symbolism that may have to do with the occult or anything like that. And in case you don't know, there's so much of it that it's just ridiculous, right? If you've studied it at all, right? And so I had like old CDs from high school, which was just like old Hank Williams Jr. CDs that had the Rising Phoenix on it and those kinds of things, right? Like I still had them. We just got married. I still had a bunch of typical teenage boy stuff that you have, right? And so we gathered that stuff up. Any like scary movies we had, any jewelry. Melissa had some jewelry that we didn't really think about what it actually meant and what it actually was. And so we had, magical princess dolls for our kid and, all kinds of stuff. And so we got us a trash bag and we started putting that stuff in this trash bag. And as we were doing that and praying at the same time, the noise went from just on our roof to all over our house, just popping, just like kaboom, kaboom, like all over the place. And the more we did it, the crazier and louder this all got.
Like I don't even know fully how to explain it. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life.
It was like somebody hitting the house really, really hard. But it was more like a firework noise. It wasn't like a hand hitting.
When we were getting rid of the stuff.
Yeah, it was more like artillery shell fireworks.
And when we were praying before we started throwing stuff away, when we heard them running, like it wasn't just like a squirrel or something on the roof. Like there was a distinct difference.
Yeah. Once again, more like fireworks hitting, like boom, boom, and this was in the winter time.
It was like running / like almost like a roof was cracking across the entire house, and it started in the room we were praying.
Yeah.
It started there.
Yeah. And so we keep gathering this stuff up, and I light a fire, right? And we had a burn barrel back then also. And I light a fire, and I tell my wife, listen, we're going to burn this stuff, because it's not like we can take it up to like a resale store, right? We don't feel right doing that. We don't feel right having a yard sale and selling it for $0.25, right? Here's this demonic thing for 25 cents. Love you, right? Couldn't do that. And so we burned it. And the fire that come off of that thing is almost undescribable.
Like the Book of Acts.
Yeah, it was yeah, they took the magic books and burned them, right? The burn barrel had like a 6 or 8 foot flame coming out of it while I was burning that stuff, right? And it was kind of crazy. So anyhow, we come back in and we start anointing. We have anointing oil, and we just start anointing our house with oil and praying. And still yet all this commotion going on in that. When I went out of the house with some of that stuff, I couldn't hear it outside. Then when I came back in, it started again. And when we started anointing the house and praying over it, same type of thing. The thing that really sticks out in my mind, one of the things whenever everything was so crazy, was back at that old house we had blinds, right, with the little twisty things where it would shut the blinds or open them, right? And when we went in the living room, the twisty knobs, they were spinning in circles. Not like spinning like where you would turn them on or flip the blinds around. They were spinning like the whole rod was spinning in a circle, right? Which was kind of crazy to see, for sure. Wasn't no like windows open. Once again, it was the winter time. We had the wood stove going. It was cold, yet these things were spinning around. And Melissa was praying, and I was praying, and she was praying hard enough that like in this whole event that she was pretty pale by the time we'd made our way to the living room. We prayed over every room, every closet, every bathroom, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And we got in there in the living room, and she was just pale and weak.
That stuff, like, if you've ever anointed, even at your church and stuff, that stuff takes a lot out of you physically and spiritually. But
it does.
You feel it here on earth. Like, it just takes the wind out of you. And that was the worst I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like, feeling like all that was taken out of me. Like, I had to sit down. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember telling you to sit down.
I had to sit down.
Looking. So she sits down, and I went ahead and anointed the living room while she was sitting on the couch at our old house. This house doesn't have a couch, so it wasn't. But at our old house, right? And after I got done anointing the living room, I felt like I needed to anoint her with oil and pray over her. And this is where the story changes from scary to good. Yeah. Now I'm trying not to cry. So I am a pastor, a brother in the Lord, somebody that just tries to serve the Lord and have anointed and prayed over lots of people and houses, and people that have similar type things happen in their house. And I've seen miracles, and I've seen the Lord heal, and I've seen, truthfully, have seen people that were so for lack of a better word, they were demon possessed, right? And have seen those come out of people. And so at this point, I understand that something's happening, and so I have all the confidence in the world at the time. And when I say that, don't think that it's like me thinking I've got all this. No, it wasn't that. It was, I understood that we were just trying to do what the Lord wanted us to do, and the Lord was blessing and moving. And so it's kind of like making hay while the sun shines, if you will, right? Like, let's just stay after this. I'm the type of person, right, when you catch a fish, you don't stop fishing, you fish harder and faster, right? You do all you can to catch more fish, right? And so, like, I was seizing the moment, right, is what I was thinking in my head. And so she's sitting on the couch, I anoint her with oil and start to pray, and she's praying and weeping, right? And like simultaneously, it wasn't like she hollered and then I hollered because she hollered. It was all like in one shot. I felt like something was standing right beside me. Remember, we're in the house by ourselves. She's sitting on the couch and I'm standing up above her with my hand on her praying.
Yeah, you were kind of like right here. Like to the right of me, but in front of me a little bit.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, it just felt like that moment where somebody first steps up beside you. And I knew we were in the house, alone somewhat. And it scared the daylights out of me for like a half a second. And as big and fat as I am, I turned into a cat real quick, right? And I jumped sideways. And somewhere between that movement, I realized that this was a good thing and not a bad thing. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it wasn't bad. I knew it was extraordinarily good. And so I began to shout. I went from extreme fear to shouting praise. And Melissa looked at me and said, "Did you see that?" I was like, "I didn't see nothing," right? But I felt it.
Yeah.
Do you want to try to describe, I know it's tough, but do you want to try to describe to the people what you've seen?
I can't about cry.
It's okay.
I had my eyes closed praying, and then that moment that he's talking about, I kind of remember shouting a little bit because my eyes were closed. And I saw this lit. It was the Lord. It was the Lord, and it was... I couldn't see his face, but it was like a shadow, but the shadow was light. It wasn't dark like a shadow you see on the floor. It was light. And it was him. And he was just standing there. He didn't say anything. But it scared me. Like a good fear, and then I shouted again because it was just good, And before all this, I couldn't pray. I couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't. I'm surprised I had the courage and the energy to get up and pray over our home with you, because it was just, I can't even describe it, guys. I was in such bad darkness. The darkest I've ever felt in my life. For months. But in that moment, my eyes were closed and he revealed himself unto me.
I remember you saying it was like a light bulb exploded. Like,
it looked like
that bright, like lightning bright almost.
Yes, it was that bright, but it was the outline of him.
Yeah.
Or Jesus, whichever, they're one, right?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but it doesn't matter.
Don't get too hung up on it, right?
Literal, but I just knew what I saw.
Yeah.
And for that whole time, I couldn't feel him. That whole time I struggled with that, I couldn't feel him. Then he stood right there in front of me. Like, how many times has that happened to anybody?
Yeah. And, this is difficult stuff to talk about. But what you're getting is raw, unedited experience.
I don't talk about that experience. I mean, no. The darkness part of it and stuff, I don't talk about. And it's hard to talk about when he revealed himself to me without talking about the darkness stuff.
Can't have light without the dark, right?
And it's very hard for me to talk about
And a lot of that part of my life is very fuzzy. I don't remember a whole lot when my oldest was about 1.
Yeah.
Or right before she turned 1. I couldn't take care of her. I couldn't be there for her. And you know, I used to think kind of little about like anxiety or depression and stuff, and I don't anymore.
No, I used to be a complete bootstrap, what I call a bootstrap guy, right? Just pull your bootstraps up and get over it, you'll be fine, right? Quit thinking like Eeyore. And I'm gonna be honest.
There's some of that you can pull your bootstraps up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to work harder at choosing to be happy or choosing joy today.
Yeah.
I still have to do that some, you know, and it's not, some of it's not completely gone. As far as, like, I still have days where I kind of struggle with being sad and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But we have,
especially if we
had a turning point there.
Yeah. So, and that's where I was trying to get to, but I was fighting back the emotions here. That was a real turning point where we started to have good days. And any of you that's never experienced anything like this, we had almost no good days before that. So just to get maybe one day a week of none of those panic attacks and that gripping depression, anxiety, fear, that one day a week where Melissa felt like walking out of the bedroom and coming to the dinner table and sitting there and eating dinner. That was huge.
Yeah.
And then one day turned to 2 days. And then 2 days turned to 3, right? And it started to get better to where
I started to feel the Lord more.
Yeah.
Since that.
Yeah.
It felt like I could go places outside the home. I knew it was going to be really hard and difficult. But I knew I had to get over that. It was like something clicked in my head too. It was a change in mind too after that.
Yeah.
Like the Lord let me know, like, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
And you may have to push harder, you know, whereas before I had no push left.
Yeah.
You know, I had no left in me.
Yeah, that was a hard time.
Yeah. And now I have people coming to me that struggle with the same things, you know?
Yeah. So, we've been blessed enough to be in a lot of churches and hold revivals and those kinds of things. And I'm kind of old-timey. I say that I like good, I call them spicy chicken sandwich services, right? Where they're hot and on fire and people shouting and all of that stuff, right? Like, I like all of that. But I just like the Spirit of the Lord more than any of that, right? So sometimes that's quiet. Sometimes, go ahead. Sometimes that's a very quiet service. Sometimes that's a very whatever, right? But the Lord has, you know, the Bible says He works all things out for the good for those that love Him, right? And we have used this experience to be more compassionate towards those struggling with depression and anxiety. And I want to make this very clear to you. Melissa was saved before this time.
Yeah.
But she knew the Lord. She knew the Lord. I had seen the fruit of her working, right, and serving the Lord. And to talk with other children of God that struggled with depression, I say it this way: if they would have had the same rules, laws, and regulations they have today, Elijah would have been on a 72-hour hold like several times.
Yeah.
Right? Like they would have thrown him into a mental institution, right? Because sometimes you fall under attack and those attacks get hard. Right? I mean, you're always under attack, but sometimes they're harder than others, right? And we know that. And the truth of the matter is we've had a lot of experiences. We just have. And I mentioned earlier having dreams. It's not because I'm some super spiritual individual, right? I really think it's because I'm so dense-headed that God has to show it to me where I can see it, right? And so the Lord's let us in on some of those things, and some of our children have struggled even with some dreams and trying to understand them, and it's not like, hey, I just woke up and had a dream that I was flying, right? Like, you can tell it's completely different. And
it's more in depth for a 3 and 4 year old than it should be.
Yes. So when one of our children was, I don't know, how old was she? Maybe 3.
Yeah.
She woke up really, really early, and we went ahead and made breakfast and those kinds of things. We were sitting down to eat breakfast, and she said, Jesus, I had a dream last night. And I was like, okay, good. What'd you dream about, honey? Because we knew she was real restless. And she said, Jesus come back. And I was like, what? She was in my dream. Jesus was in the sky, and he was coming to earth, or coming to here. And I was like, okay, that's good, sissy. At first I said, was he like in your room or whatever? She goes, no, he's in the sky. She goes, there's a bad man down here. Didn't want him to come back. And I was like, okay, all right, what else? And she starts explaining this stuff to me. And she's 3 years old. Like, she doesn't know, right?
I don't think she learned that in Sunday school yet.
She's no Bible scholar, right? And she basically repeated the book of Revelation, or a big chunk of the book of Revelation to us. Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 30, all that stuff. Just spit it out like that's just what happened, right? And I'm going, Melissa's looking at me like, what? And I'm like, do you realize she just explained like the return of Christ in great detail without ever knowing it, right? So part of the reason why we talk about these things is people that have dreams, or people that have visions, or have these spiritual things happen to them, good or bad.
It says we should desire all the gifts too.
We should desire all the spiritual gifts, right? Every one of them. And I used to be wrong about that. Right? I'm open about that. I was wrong. There were some spiritual gifts I thought were wrong, and you shouldn't follow them. And then the Bible, after truthfully, my grandpa was like, you better read the Bible. Right? I read the Bible and was like, ooh, yeah, they are all still in existence today. But anyhow, I believe the church fails in talking about these things. And it is scary, and it's hard to talk about. You see us crying, right? But at the same time, if we don't talk about them, and these things happen to somebody in the church, then they feel like they're all alone.
Because you don't hear many about that. You don't hear testimonies about that.
No.
And people look at you like you're crazy when you do say it.
Yeah.
And then you leave because the devil's attacking you. Like, see, you shouldn't have talked about that. You looked stupid, or whatever.
Yeah. When the truth of the matter is, the Bible teaches these things happen, right?
When you set out to serve God for real, there's things that happen, and I don't know. I don't like talking about this.
She fought me tooth and nail to make the video.
Yeah, I don't like doing this. And the only, I'm a crier. I cry in a lot of our videos you probably have seen, but this was literally the darkest time of my life, and I don't like bringing those feelings back, because I took a lot to try to get them out, get them away from me, you know.
And like I said, just talking about it to raise awareness as much as anything. I'm a big why person. I like to know what motivates people and what made them change their mind and those kinds of things, right? And I kind of got for a little while on a kick of watching testimonies of people that claimed that they were Christians at one point in time, and they've since left the faith, and they've started doing these occult-like things, right? And their testimony basically was like, well, this experience, whatever experience it was, some sort of experience, happened to them when they were young. They told their church family about it, and their church family said that it wasn't real, or that stuff doesn't exist, or nothing really happened to you, right? All this kind of stuff. And that made them leave the faith, and they found that there was real power in this occult type stuff. And the other people that was involved in the occult like stuff believed them whenever they said, hey, this happened at my house, whatever it might be, right? They believed them. And there was just testimony after testimony after testimony of a similar type pattern of, I was being tormented, and whatever was, maybe my cabinet doors were banging at night, and I told my church family, and they looked at me like I was nuts, right? And they kept, well, maybe it's just, somehow the wind blew, and maybe blew through a crack in a window, and all, they tried to explain it all away in a physical way. And I'm not saying there aren't things that happen, right? There are.
Or like your mind
Play tricks on you and all that stuff, right? Yeah. But also, we can't continue to discount all of this stuff, and then we drive people away, and then they run to this witchcraft and sorcery nonsense. I'd say no, it's real stuff. It's real power. Not all magic is just smoke and mirrors, right? So, like when Pharaoh's magicians threw their staffs down and they turned into snakes, that wasn't all just like smoke and mirrors.
No.
Like, that was real.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse, the Bible teaches, as we grow closer to the return of Christ. We've been studying the Antichrist in our Wednesday night studies at church, and it says that he will make sorcery and witchcraft prosper, right? And not only will he make it prosper, but he will do miraculous things that will get the whole world to follow him that's not saved, the Bible says. Yeah. So, truthfully, we just wanted to bring awareness to this and tell you a testimony of one of our experiences, and probably one of the more intense ones for sure. Yeah. We've had several, but that's one that always sticks in my mind whenever we think about these things. Please don't discount this stuff whenever it happens to somebody, friend or family member. Please be willing and open enough to at least listen to them, pray with them, talk with them, and don't just shrug it all off like it doesn't exist anymore or anything like that, or like somebody's just completely fell off their rocker, right? Spend some time with them. And if you are a leader of a church and you have found yourself discounting these things over and over and over again, I ask that you just pray about that.
So from our family to yours here on the homestead, we wish you guys a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
We'll catch you on the next video.